Hi, I'm Larry Dignan here for ZDNet, and we're talking to Antonio Neri. He is CEO of HPE. Hi, Antonio. How you doing?
Hi, Larry. How you doing? Good.
So it's been a while since we caught up, and Discover's kind of in the rearview mirror, and earnings were reported in May. So I guess just catch us up on kind of the business environment and kind of what's changed since you reported earnings in May.
Well, obviously, a lot has happened, but the one thing has been consistent is we're still going through this very challenging time with the global pandemic. And there was a point in time where we thought, well, maybe this is now plateau coming down. But as you know, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen a resurgence of cases. Personally, I got the COVID-19 myself, and I was able to recover very, very quickly. But the reality, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and obviously, no business is immune to the challenges we see, including our communities. But I will say, since May, a lot of progress has made on our side. When we announced the results, we talked about a large backlog and the disruption in the supply chain. For the vast majority of that is behind us. So we have recovered the supply chain and we continue to work through that backlog. And demand has been steady, but what we see the demand is shifting to new areas or different areas for that matter. One is obviously to provide connectivity to work in this very distributed model. I've talked about the fact that connectivity now is an essential service like water and electricity. But definitely we see the need to provide connectivity in a much more agile and scalable way. Second is obviously to provide services to the remote workforce in a cloud native approach. And then third, anything that has to do with data. We see a significant uptake in terms of solutions that require machine learning or artificial intelligence. But I will say for the most part, demand has been steady. But obviously for us, it's important that we continue to focus on our employees, the well-being of them, and then plan the return to the office.
How does that return to the office look like for you? I mean, I saw Google punted till 2021. A lot of it just kind of depends on the worker and workforce, I think. But how do you approach returning back to the office? Because you guys have a few zillion employees.
Yeah. Well, obviously we are a global company and we have presence in 172 markets, although we are directly present through our channel partners, but we are directly present in 80 or so. The first phase of this was to obviously manage the crisis and making sure all our employees were protected and safe, and then giving them the tools. And so that has been very positive, and employees really appreciated all the work that we have done for them. And then in the last several weeks, we have been planning the return to the office. I will tell you that we have reopened 93 sites around the globe, but none in the United States, 0 in the United States. And we are what we call in phase one, which is up to 20% of the employees are allowed to get back to the office. But we are working through that, and obviously we are following the local authorities, guidelines. As I think about the future, though, it's totally different. I think, we are not going to be going back the way we used to, where people will have a desk and come and do their job. I think the sites will be totally redesigned to provide a more collaborative and innovative experience, not to come and lock your PC to do your daily job. And I said many times, Larry, that probably up to 50% of the workforce will never return to the office to do their job on a daily basis. Obviously, all of them will come back to the office to do innovation sessions, collaboration sessions, and then ultimately for social aspect of it. So it's an opportunity to change the way we work and to provide a better experience, but also to rationalize our footprint.
Okay. As far as, data, tracking your workforce, what kind of metrics do you think? I mean, because right now everybody went remote. Everybody was super productive, largely because, you kind of
Right.
had to be. And now we're kind of teetering on a little burnout, little here.
Yeah.
What metrics do you look at internally or see as most valuable to sort of gauge the workforce?
Well, obviously, we have a direct engagement. I have personally hosted calls with all our employees, our team members, either on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. In fact, I have one coming up tomorrow, where we're going to have a discussion around what we see in the market and what steps we are taking, and most importantly, answer the tough questions from our employees. Many of them are still very nervous to come back to the office, and many of them want to come back to the office. Realizing, Larry, I think the biggest challenge we have in front of us is exactly that. One is they are a little bit saturated to be at home. Everybody has a different family situation. Obviously, we're getting closer to school, starting of school, and that's a lot of stress. And this is where one of the things we have done is establishing both physical well-being program and then mental programs to help them get through this and figure out how we can help them. And I think this school year is going to be very challenging for everyone. You know, I personally have a daughter that goes to college, and she's changed totally their approach. They're not going to be in campus; they're going to be in an apartment. And my son is a senior, right? And obviously, is going to start remotely. Um, but I think we need to think about now what is the next step in this journey, and make sure we don't lose the culture aspect of this, because you know the fabric of who we are is the culture. And think about the previous discussion we are having. What is that workforce and how they're going to work, and then make sure we don't lose the essence of the culture that we need to continue to drive going forward.
What are you hearing from customers? Like what projects are, what projects have been hit fast forward, and what kind of projects been put to the side?
Well, I think anything that has to do with IT resiliency is getting a significant amount of attention. Security, obviously, because now they have to manage way more points in their enterprise. You know, we traditionally have a cloud. For us, cloud is not a destination; it's an experience, but it can be in somebody else's location, or it can be on your prem. Then you have the campus, and then you have the branch, and now you have these micro branches, which is all our offices, around the globe, our home offices. And so security is essential. They are thinking about how to connect all these data points in a very cost-effective way. And solutions like SD-WAN are being in more on the table, and that's why we did the acquisition of Silver Peak that we announced 2 weeks ago. Anything that has to do with data analytics, you asked a question about data. Anything that can extract value from the data is taking a significant look at it and investments, because we are entering what I call the new age of insights. And those who can extract every bit of the data are going to be the winners, whether it's to protect enterprise or to create new business models or new revenue opportunities. Those are the areas, and obviously things like VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, are significant in demand. But I think, in our case, because we have a unique portfolio with connectivity with Aruba, that's obviously a critical aspect. And then HPC, high performance computing, because HPC is the backbone for large data processing.
So when you look at this, I mean, I kind of look at HP's portfolio now, and in the back of my head, I kind of go, is there going to be, fast forward a few years, are you guys going to be primarily known as an edge company as opposed to a, server storage networking sort of company? Especially with once you toss Silver Peak in the mix.
Yeah.
I guess, so what's your take on, being known more as an edge company instead of the, traditional data center cloud?
Well, we want to be known as the edge to cloud platform as a service company. And in that, there are three major components. One is the as a service, because obviously customers want to consume, their solutions in a more consumption driven, pay only for what you consume. And that experience at the core is simplicity and automation for all the apps and data, wherever they live. Obviously, the edge is the next frontier. And we said 2 years ago that the enterprise of the future will be edge-centric, cloud-enabled, and data-driven. Well, guess what? The future is here and now, right? The edge is where we live and work. And so for us, as customer accelerates the digital transformation, the first step in that journey is connectivity. And this is where, being an edge platform is essential. And I think that's something that we can compete and win and Silver Peak is another proof point in that journey. And then on the core business, compute and storage are major pillars of what is needed, because ultimately you need to store data, you need to process data, but the way it's being consumed is more workload optimized and more as a service. And so you still need those aspects of the portfolio, but the way you deliver is a total different experience, more cloud native than ever before.
So at the core stuff with the compute and storage, how important is the hyperscalers to your business at this point?
We have divested completely from what we call the tier one or the super 8 or whatever you want to call it in 2017. At the peak, we used to have almost $2 billion of revenue in that business, but it was dilutive to the company because obviously it's uber commoditized. And we shifted our focus to more the segments of the markets where they need more services and more software. And this is where the introduction of HPE GreenLake services at HPE Discover is another proof point in that journey to become the as-a-service company. In that, we introduced 17 pre-configured offers that address 7 aspects of the infrastructure, whether it's compute and storage, virtualization, containerization, connectivity as a service, data protection as a service, and MLOps as a service. And you will see here, Larry, over the next weeks and months, new offers coming as a part of HPE GreenLake. But also we introduced our own software solution, consider it as an alternative swim lane to VMware and Red Hat OpenShift for that matter, where we actually drive our own software-defined stack that ultimately addresses 3 fundamental problems that customers have today. One is the application, where you can run in the same stack stateful and stateless applications, and so you don't have to create silos, and that's a significant cost advantage. Second is the operation side, where basically we built AI machine learning in our stack, both through the acquisition of Blue Data Storage and our HPE InfoSight solution, so that the run part of the cost goes down dramatically because everything is automated and need people. And the third part of this is the data, because through the acquisition of MapR, we integrated a true data fabric from the edge to the cloud that allows us to run these big data intensive workloads. And some of those workloads can be things like Splunk and others. And so we are able to now address this, take that software defined stack with our compute and storage and deliver this workload optimized in a true cloud native approach that you can consume through GreenLake. So you can push of a button, you can deploy the solution, whether it's in a colo, on-prem, or at the edge, and yet still manage the hybrid environment through HPE GreenLake, because also we connect to the public cloud like Azure and AWS and Google and so forth.
So it's a case of connecting to the public clouds as opposed to selling to them or even necessarily competing.
Correct.
So walk me through some of the opportunities and challenges with getting enterprises to think of you as a software brand. You mentioned VMware and Red Hat, and I don't think any CIO is going to get fired for buying those guys.
Yeah.
What do you have to do to break through to basically pitch GreenLake or was it Ezmeral? Is that how you say it?
Ezmeral, HPE Ezmeral.
And that's your flagship software brand now.
Yep.
What are some of the challenges, and I guess how receptive are enterprises to another data center brand or cloud brand or as a service brand?
Well, I think customers are open to consider alternatives that actually simplifies their environment, reduce the cost, and they don't get locked in. Our approach with the HPE Ezmeral is a true open source. It's based on Kubernetes, standard open source K8, where we actually harden the security, which is one of the inherent challenges with containers. And the other one is to provide persistent storage connectivity through our data fabric. But ultimately, customer says, why pay the tax when I can have a true cloud native approach? And as I said earlier, as there is the fundamentals of automation and the application and the data. Because even in VMware now, right, you have a VMware stack for virtualization. Now with the introduction of Tanzu, they're trying to bridge you to the container world. But the reality is still in a tax you have to pay in between. We actually can run all of this in a true cloud native approach on bare metal without paying the tax. And so if our strategy is to be true open source, autonomous, intelligent, and secure, and be able to connect all their edges and all their clouds in a very automated way. And we have already won quite a significant amount of customers because of HPE Emerald. There is a large financial institution here in the Bay Area that need to run Splunk as a workload on-prem because the amount of data, they don't want to pay the cost of egressing data back and forth, and they want a true cloud-native approach. And by the way, we deploy that because of HPE Emerald with our compute and storage solutions, deliver as a service to HPE GreenLake. Those are the type of customers we're going to attract going forward.
So that customer, I assume they have other, platforms in there too. So is it a case of you're trying to land and expand with new workloads, or
Correct.
it's more new
Yes.
workloads?
Is about land and expand with new workloads and be able to provide a managed services for the entire estate, because over time, as we are able to take those legacy workloads and put it on this new platform, we actually can take cost out for the customer. And many customers are telling us, we don't want to be in the run side anymore. We want to be on the innovation side. And therefore, as we create that momentum and that confidence, it will be easier to take care of the legacy workloads and not just the new workloads.
So are those new workloads that you'll be targeting, are they more edge-centric, or are they more, from the core?
Both. But I have to say, Larry, the edge is a significant opportunity. And this is where our strategy with Aruba and the integration of compute and storage in that edge services platform is a big opportunity for us. And obviously, there you need to take more a verticalized approach, right? Manufacturing is different than financial services or retail, but we see quite a significant traction in manufacturing retail, where they want that fully integrated capability with connectivity and edge computing. And also, those are customers that still live in the analog world, and bridging the analog to the IT workload or the IT side is a necessary step. So we see that as a big opportunity for us.
So you mentioned retail. What are some of the other industries that you see as the most edge-centric, so to speak?
Well, manufacturing for sure, right? Transportation, think about it, right? Through the autonomous vehicles and the different phases there, right? So that's an edge moving on wheels, right? And whether it is 5G connectivity or whether it is Wi-Fi connectivity when they get back to their base for maintenance purposes, this is a big opportunity to really integrate the whole experience and be able to manage data very efficiently. In the end, those are the type of use cases need to process data real time, right? And not in a batch-centric approach. And so that's the opportunity for us to provide those type of solutions. So those are examples of it. Healthcare is another thing. I mean, the reality is that if you think about it today, if you do an MRI or live MRI, you're processing data there, right? You're not connecting to the cloud to do all of that. But you may move some aspect of the data to the cloud for other research purposes. But that capability, that bandwidth, that security, and that cloud experience needs to be there inside the machine when the doctors and the nurses and the practitioners are doing the studies.
And then I guess my final question would be, the as a service pivot you guys are doing. How long do you think that'll take to start generating serious growth? And I guess what's that future growth look like?
Right. Well, it's a journey. I mean, obviously there is a component of customer acceptance, but the fact that customers have already, embraced the consumption model through shifting some workloads to the cloud, that tells you the OpEx model, and it is something that's being adopted more and more than just a CapEx model. But let me be clear, GreenLake already has tremendous momentum. We already have $4 billion of total contract value under our paper in our books. That business is growing between 35 and 50% every quarter on a year-over-year basis. And our annualized run rate revenue, which is ultimately what you see, Larry, in a P&L, right, in a financial statement, because of the nature of the deferred revenue, is already exceeding $500 million and growing 20 to 22%. But obviously it's a journey, right? And one point of differentiation we have with GreenLake is not just the solution itself, which has software, infrastructure, and services with the metering capabilities and the business model innovation, but it's also the financing that comes with it. Remember, inside Hewlett Packard Enterprise, you have an entity called HPE Financial Services, which is the leader provider in asset lifecycle management, but also is the financing that we embed inside HPE GreenLake that allows you to drive the consumption of your offer. And in that, we can provide capital and operating leases embedded in the solution. So we see the growth, we see the momentum, but obviously when you are a $28, $29 billion company, to pivot everything in that model will take time.
And then that model will encompass hardware too, right?
Well, it is
component,
is a major component of that, right? So right. The good news is that we can offer the hardware, the software, and the services, and you only pay for what you consume and have the elasticity that you need, whether it's on-prem or at the edge. And if you want us to run the public cloud for you to curate those workloads, we run it as a part of a HPE GreenLake managed services.
Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything to toss out there on your end?
No, I mean, one particular aspect I'm really proud, Larry, is the culture of the company. You know, when I became CEO, I had 3 priorities: our customers and partners, our innovation, and our culture. And for CEOs, cultures are essential. And you can see a major change in the culture of the company to be very customer-centric, to be a force for good, and to drive that customer-driven innovation. And everything we just talked about it is innovation that we derive from spending a lot of time with customers. I spend 50% of my time with customers and partners. So our strategy couldn't be more on point. I'm extremely convicted of that. Obviously, our portfolio is heavily weighted to the infrastructure because that's the legacy, that's where we came from. But as we think about the next 3 to 5 years, this company is going to change dramatically in the composition and where the growth is going to be, but ultimately sustained by the culture, which at the core is how you do things and the talent in the organization. And remember, our purpose to advance the way people live and work, and that's substantiated by 4 core beliefs. We believe in accelerating what is next. We believe in bold moves, and this strategy is a bold move to change who we are. We believe in the power of yes, we can. You know, we put the we before the I, and that's something that is core in our values. And then last but not least, we believe in being a force for good. And in these trying times, that's very important, especially when shareholders are looking more to ESG-oriented policies. And we have one of the most diverse boards in corporate America, which is something we should be proud of it.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.